Welcome to the MFR Coaches podcast, where we talk about how you can create a six-figure MFR practice. I'm your host, Heather Hommel. Not only have I been practicing MFR for 11 years, I'm also a life and business coach, especially for MFR therapists. My goal is for you to understand how to get fully booked, how to talk to your clients, and how to make sure they understand what's possible for them with MFR treatment. I'm here to help you stop under-earning, overworking, and burning out. I'll lend support so you can create the MFR practice you've always wanted. Learn how you can do it too, even if you live in a tiny town, and even if you're just starting out, and even if you've ran your practice for years. Let's go. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the MFR Coaches podcast. I have with me again for a repeat show, or maybe this is a three-peat. This is a three-peat, I think. Just tell everybody who you are. They're like pulling over, parking. They're like, who is it, Heather? Who is our guest?
Well, thank you for pulling over and parking in our honor.
I'm
Maren Van Shura with Livient Legal, and thank you for having me back twice or three times. We're not sure.
Yeah, we're not sure. I think this is the third time.
Okay.
Yeah. So welcome in. Welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah. Always happy to chat with you.
Yes. Okay. Well, sorry about like the worst introduction ever. Podcast. I was trying to be suspenseful and fun, but okay, I digress. Well, we are going to talk a little bit more about the MFR Coaches Toolbox, what's in it, why you want it, and what the value is of that. And Maren is the lawyer that developed this with me. We worked together. And so what would you say? I think this is like one of the objections I get from people is like, they're a small fry, like no one's looking at their website. Do you really need to have website terms and conditions?
Absolutely. And I know it seems like such a small, innocuous thing. And people are probably thinking like, who is actually looking at my website at the footer of my website? But a compliant privacy policy is a legal requirement. You can be fined without one. I've had a client actually have her Stripe account suspended because she didn't have before we started working together, because she didn't have a compliant privacy policy posted on her website. So that is critical. But especially for MFR practitioners, it's really important to have a compliant disclaimer policy. You've probably seen this on other websites before, but the disclaimer policy is like essentially a liability shield. This says that anybody who comes to your website assumes the risk of any and all behavior and anything associated with your website. So let's say, for example, a practitioner is demonstrating a certain massage technique, or even maybe is an affiliate and recommends a certain supplement. The disclaimer policy is going to be your liability shield. So if somebody tries something similar and gets injured, or tries the supplement and gets sick, they assume all the risks. That's what the disclaimer policy says. And then the terms and conditions policy, so it's a trifecta, three policies. The terms and conditions policy is really important because that protects your intellectual property. And even if you don't have a blog, even if your website is just pictures of you and your services, that's still intellectual property. You don't want somebody to steal your photos and repurpose them. So that terms and conditions policy is really important. And then for those of you out there who do have blogs or some other type of original content, the terms and conditions policy is also going to outline the behavior that's appropriate on your website. So sometimes people have blogs and they allow comments. The policy is going to talk about what you can and cannot do on somebody's website. So very important for different reasons. And one of the great things about the policies is like the policies in the toolbox are designed for MFR practitioners. You fill in the blanks. It will take you less than 10 minutes. And they're not something, because the law doesn't change frequently enough that these policies are going to be affected. You stick them on your website and you're generally good to go.
So what would you say to someone is it good enough to just have like, you just write your own policy and slap it up there? Or does it really need to have like the legalese in it?
It absolutely needs to have the legalese. I know the tendency now, especially since we have so many tools readily available, so many free tools, People can use ChatGPT and ask
Does
it.
that work? I think we should go there. Like, does it work to just have ChatGPT spit something out for you?
No. And I've had clients come to me, they've brought me contracts, if you can call it that ChatGPT is drafted, and they're just rife with errors. They're not drafted for their industry. They're generic. I don't want to get too into the weeds with all the legal terms, but they leave the business owner massively vulnerable. So I would say AI, I'm not a huge fan. I'm working on it. I can see its utility. But for something like legal documents, it's just like, why would you risk it? Especially if you have legal documents drafted for MFR businesses, like available at a price point that's doable, that's realistic. It's not worth, if you're budgeting, and who isn't, when eggs cost, like, I was just at the grocery store and I was like, you want $9.99 for eggs? Like, okay, budget on eggs, but not on legal documents for your business.
Yeah, I agree too. I think after working with you, I mean, I've worked with you for several years now on making sure my business is compliant and secured and everything. We're doing everything by the book. I think just having that peace of mind too, of like, I'm following what is required. I'd like to say I'm following the rules, but it's actually like legally required. Who checks these things? Like, how do you get in trouble if you don't have these documents or this policy on your website?
It's more like with the privacy policy thing I was telling you about with the Stripe issue. It's more like if you go to apply to use Stripe for transactions in your business, that's when people get quote unquote caught. The other issue, like with what I was talking about with the disclaimer policy, that's more if you get embroiled in a lawsuit, and that's not something you can really predict either way. So it's always, I always say, be cautious and front load everything that you can in your business as far as legal protection, because it's massively less expensive to do it at the front end than to get involved in something like even like a frivolous lawsuit that has no merit whatsoever. It's still like, think about your peace of mind and also the cost of defending something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's expensive to hire a lawyer.
It is. We're not cheap.
No, because you guys know all the things.
And we've been doing it, some of us, way longer than we publicly admit.
Yes, I love it. Okay. So we've got the website policies. Like, we know that those are a no-brainer. Like, we need to have that as a bare minimum if you have any sort of website at all. What about your policies? Like, if this is a part of the toolbox that we've created, but a lot of people have just come up with their policies. They state it on their website. Maybe they have someone check a box. These are their own policies that they've come up with. They're around like charging full price if someone misses a session, or if they're late to a session, or if they no show, they don't give enough notice. Is it enough to have just your own policy shown to the person that's booking online, and they, maybe they don't cancel in time, they no show or whatever, and you end up charging their card? Is it enough for you to just have your own policy out there and them checking a box? Or do you need more of like what we've provided in this toolbox to make it more substantial? Like, so you're not getting a charge back, or so like the client can't retaliate?
Great question. And absolutely, you need more. Let's chargebacks for a second. So the contracts that we've built have a chargeback policy in the contract that says that if you don't honor chargebacks, but if the client goes ahead and tries to issue a chargeback, that all fees associated with, because every time there's a chargeback, the bank is charging the merchant, so that's the MFR practitioner, fees just to handle the chargeback. So that's important. And that's not something that's not intuitive for somebody to think to have that kind of policy in their contract. And I'm talking about contract because we built a contract. Most MFR practitioners just have their policies. And I'll talk about in a second, like why that distinction is so important. So yes, you can create your own policies, but I would venture to guess it doesn't have the legal language backstopping that you need to actually enforce those policies. And secondly, one thing I've seen, and it's not unique to MFR practitioners, I see it across the board with a lot of my clients, is before they start working with a lawyer and they're trying to craft their policies or their contracts themselves, they don't have any confidence in what they've created. So what ends up happening is they don't enforce it. If anybody like tries to call them on it, they back down because they're like, I don't know if this is legit or not. So you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
And also things like too, like the HIPAA policy, while we're talking about policies, I mean, we were talking about late policies, et cetera, but I mean, that's something that you want to make sure is completely compliant.
Yeah, it's just like you're kind of opening yourself up to a lot of unnecessary risk by not having these things in place. And I think it's things that we, as like being in a healing profession, we don't want to, it just doesn't seem natural to want to go in these directions where you're like coming up with policies. I think in the first place is already very difficult to come up with strong policies. And then there's that layer of enforcing the policy, which feels very scary, I think, to people in the healing profession because they don't want anyone to be mad at them. And they just want clients to show up, get their treatment, and like there not to be any problems and for everybody to walk away happy. And your policies are only as good as your ability to enforce them. So if you're already shaky on enforcing it, if your policy really isn't something you can enforce and you legally can't enforce it, like what good is it?
Absolutely. And I think too, like you raise a really good point about confrontation and people pleasing. And that's one thing that I tell clients is that the beauty of a good contract that you have faith in because you know it's going to protect you is that if there is any sort of confrontation or disagreement, one, the chance of that is greatly minimized because you've laid everything out ahead of time. And that's the key. I tell people all the time is like, let people know what the boundary is ahead of time. And they're much more likely to respect your boundaries and your policies if you're detailed and upfront as to what your expectations are. But then if there is an issue, then it doesn't have to be a battle of wills. It doesn't have to be this long drawn out confrontation that you lose sleep over. It's here's the policy, here's the contract in black and white, and here's your signature.
Yeah, you're just delivering it like it's the news. And I think having that locked down, this is what you give to every patient. Maybe in the beginning, it can be a little weird and intimidating to like hand someone this contract that's bigger than just like a health history form and sign the back that you don't have any undisclosed health conditions. It's bigger than that. So you have to have a larger conversation with your client, and your client might have questions about it. They might be like, why does it say this? Or why does it say that? What is your advice for handling those kinds of questions that come up that the therapist might feel a little uncomfortable if their client has any pushback about the contract?
I would say welcome the conversation because this is a client that generally, if they have questions about it, they're invested. They're invested in getting better. And unfortunately, I feel like a lot of MFR practitioners, when somebody comes to them, it's almost like the end of the line. They've already seen 30 people prior. They've already been burned before. So they're already wary and skeptical, like, is this going to work? So I would say welcome the conversation as this is somebody who is invested in feeling better. And so this is just a conversation to alleviate their worries. And I would say that this is protection for both the practitioner and protection for the client. Uh, it's outlining how best they can achieve success through working with you. It's outlining your expectations, their expectations. It's just being really upfront with, again, what kind of service they're going to get, what the boundaries are. And I would just say it again, it's like to make the relationship as good.
Yeah, transparency, I feel like.
That's a great word. That's what I'm saying. Transparency is a perfect way of saying it. It's just like, let's make everything clear, put it out on the table, and it's protection for both.
Yeah. And I think it becomes normal. Like when you decide that this is the way you're going to go, it becomes normal. Like, this is just what I do. Some people have very strong policies and they're kind of scared to tell the client the policy. Like they charge in full if you no show or if you late cancel outside of a certain period. And it's almost like they don't want anyone to know they do that because they don't want anyone to be mad at them. But then when it comes up, then it becomes an emotional decision of like, oh, like now I'm super mad. So now they're going to owe me money. I think all of this avoids that in the first place because you're handing over your the policies are written out in black and white. They are signing them. You have a document that they're signing that contract. It's not just a review my policies and aren't they cute and adorable? No, you're actually signing that you've seen these and you agree to them. So when they do no show or late cancel, which some people are going to do, it really makes it easier. One, they already know the policy, so it's not a surprise to them. You may still not like enforcing it, but it's just much easier to enforce because there was no hidden agenda, nothing. You weren't making the decision based on how pissed you are that the client didn't do the thing that they were supposed to do. You're just doing it they knew the consequence. They late showed or they no canceled. No harm, no foul. I'm still getting paid. They can be upset if they want to be.
Take the emotion out of it completely. And I think that makes it easier for both parties.
Yeah. I see this a lot. And I think it's just therapists being shocked that a client would no show or late cancel. And it's like, no, people get busy. They forget. People are human too. So I think we do need to have a little bit of grace in our policies as well. Like maybe give everybody a one-time freebie. Because I mean, I forget stuff too, as best as I try. I'm still a human. And knowing that you have that in your policy, like to give people some grace. And then the next time they do it, it's like, nope, like this is just what we do. Like it's a pay in full or whatever, 50% charge, whatever it is. I think it's easier then.
Absolutely.
Yeah. People can be so fickle about I don't know if that's the right word, but about making these policies and enforcing them. I think that's just a really big hurdle to get over. And I feel like having this toolbox helps with that hurdle. There's like all that mental chatter of like, am I a bad person if I charge this person if they don't follow my policy? Optional.
Exactly. And I know that one of the things that you work on in your coaching programs is the mindset around that. Like we all, at some point in our entrepreneurial journey, face some sort of mindset issue, imposter syndrome, et cetera. And I think one of the things that I tell myself is that this is like, expect this, like as you grow and scale and become more and more successful, that's not necessarily going to go away. You just have to expect it and realize, okay, now next, what is that phrase? New level, new devil.
Yeah, I think that is. Yeah.
It's just that the mindset piece of this is always going to be part of the work. And accept that and say, okay, I need to get past this. And I also know that I've taken the steps to protect myself legally. So I have the protection and the ammunition backstopping me for any conversation that I have.
Yeah, I like that. I like just being able to feel like, okay, I've got this in place. And no matter what, like I'm protected from whatever a client could say or do, or, whatever like miscommunication could happen. We have clearly communicated about it via this document. So there shouldn't be any confusion.
There's also a credibility piece to this as well that I think is important and can't be understated. That I feel like we've all gone to different businesses, and I had recently, it was a massage and it was acupuncture, and the service itself was incredible. But the documents I got prior to the service actually made me, and maybe it's just because I'm a lawyer, so I think this way, but I'm just like, this is a little, just the documents were just poor quality. It wasn't comprehensive. There were definitely pieces that should have been there and were missing. And I feel like we've all been to service providers that have had a similar experience. I think there's a legitimacy and credibility that comes with being a successful business and presenting a prospect with, this is my package of documents and policies. It's a level of professionalism, I think, that's really important.
Yeah, I agree. And I think too, I was going to sign a contract with someone to manage a property of mine after being in kind of like a weird, had a different property manager, and it was like a very solid contract. It was very hard to get out of the contract. And so as I went to sign another one,
I wanted to do a lot of negotiating, and I think from working with you and like having these legal documents, like I just feel much more able to like read something and be like, that's a red flag, or I would never sign this. So when it came to negotiate, I was like, I'm unable to sign your contract because of, I think there were like 25 things. And I'm pretty sure they wrote their contract on ChatGPT, or something. So I was like, this is a no, this is a no. And they were like, well, you either sign it or we don't work together. And I think they thought that I was desperate to work with them. So I was like, we just won't be working together. And it was very interesting to be able to just do that. And I think some of that is like a lot of the mindset work I've done. And then also just knowing I like have your voice in my head. I'm like, yeah, Maren would be like, that's a no.
Well, I'm sorry that my voice is in your head, but I'm glad that it was beneficial. I think sometimes too, things like that, they work themselves out in a way, and I feel like you'll find somebody better, especially like, if you're embarking potentially on what could be a long-term relationship with somebody managing a property. I mean, that's an investment. That's your property. And if they're not amenable to even having a conversation about some things that you're skeptical about, that's a big red flag.
Mm-hmm. Very big red flag. And I felt good about being able to be like, what, I just like, there's lots of options out there. And I think people could be thinking about this too with their own contracts with their clients is if a client is skeptical about your contract, you can know that ChatGPT didn't make the contract. Like this is an actual legal document that a lawyer drafted. And it's okay for them to be skeptical about it. You can have a discussion with them, but most of your clients are going to sign these things, and people that are skeptical, like maybe it's just not a good fit for you, or like maybe they were never going to be your client in the first place, just like this situation that I had. So what if someone wants to negotiate their contract in the legal toolbox? Like, what would you tell them?
I would say, be open to having a conversation. I think sometimes I don't know what it is now about society. Like so many people aren't sitting down like human to human and having a conversation, like a real world conversation about like, what is your actual concern? And so I think sometimes the specter of something is bigger in our minds than it actually is. Maybe they're just like, this is a lot of paper I haven't signed. Maybe their uncle 35 years ago got burned in a business relationship. And so they're wary of signing anything. It's just having a conversation and seeing if you can. And sometimes there's a middle ground that you can come to. Sometimes they might have some off the wall question, and maybe that's something that you ask a lawyer about. But I would say have the conversation wherever you can.
Yeah, I agree too. And I think it is like some people aren't willing to have conversations, but the more we're willing to just be like, let's just have an awkward conversation. Like, what is it about this that you don't like? So you can understand and then you can make a decision. Am I going to work with this client or not?
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's been a couple of times where people have come to me with questions about like, should their business also be an LLC? And I know this is outside of the toolbox discussion, but what do you think for us MFR practitioners out there in the wild? Like, do people need to file an LLC? Should they have that, or should they just be doing business as?
I think they absolutely should. So, and it, this is going to vary state to state, and I'm not insensitive to a state like California, where being an LLC, I think, is $800 to start. And then I can't remember what it is annually, but it's not an inexpensive endeavor. That said, the advantages to having an LLC, there's so many advantages, but the big one I would say is that it protects your personal assets. So in the eyes of the law, you and the LLC are two different entities. Whereas if you're a sole proprietor and operating as a DBA, so you're Heather Hamel, DBA, whatever your business, you and the business are one and the same. So unfortunately, it's legal, so we have to talk about worst case scenario. But let's say you're sued, creditors are coming after your assets. If you're an LLC, they can't come after your house, your car, because those assets are insulated because they belong to you and not to the LLC. So that bottom line, I could go much more into the weeds, but I would say it's the protection of your personal assets that's really important.
Yeah, I think that's what I tell people too. So I'm glad we're on the same page and I'm saying it right. Quick heads up, podcast listeners. This June only, you can grab the MFR Coaches Legal Toolbox and website legal bundle together for just $299. That's a savings of $399 to legally protect your MFR practice and website with lawyer-drafted, customizable documents made just for you. Go to themfrcoach.com/toolbox before June 30th to get the deal. Then people ask about becoming an S corp, and I always tell people this is basically a tax election after you have your LLC. Is that true? Is there any other legal protection for being an S corp versus just an LLC?
That is exactly right. It's not an entity selection, it's a tax classification. So you would already have your business entity, whether that's an LLC or a sole proprietorship. And then you would work with your accountant who files S corp paperwork. I generally, I've talked to several accountants about this, and they generally say in order to make the fees and all the associated paperwork worth it, your business should be doing at least $75K per year. That's just something to keep in the back of your mind, but the tax benefits can be pretty extensive to having an S corp. So I would say it's a conversation to have with your accountant when you're at that income threshold.
Okay, that's really good to know, because that's always a big question. Another question that came up recently was, if you do your LLC yourself, say you file your paperwork with your state yourself and they make you elect a registered agent. So you have to select a registered agent. Can you pick yourself as a registered agent? And what is the responsibility of a registered agent? Do you know those?
Yes, you can. I'm for my business, I'm my own registered agent. It's just something that goes on the corporate filings. The registered agent's role technically is to receive any mail that comes from the Secretary of State regarding your business. But yes, you can be your own registered agent. It doesn't matter. Sometimes people have, especially if their business is registered in another state, they'll have a registered agent. You can pay, I think, $99 a month, or maybe it's even $99 a year, and somebody will serve as your registered agent. That's an option. But the easiest route is, yes, you can be your own registered agent.
And you should be able to just log into your Secretary of State's website and file your own LLC paperwork there, make those elections right from those websites, right? You don't have to go through LegalZoom or one of those. Or do you have to get a lawyer involved to file an LLC?
If it's an uncomplicated LLC, meaning it's a single member LLC, it's just you, yes, you can do it yourself. Take some time though and work through the steps. Some states, it's more complicated than other states. Some states, you might have to list what your purpose is of your LLC. And so I always tell people to keep it really broad. Coaching and any other lawful purpose. MFR practice and any other lawful purpose. So that gives you a lot of leeway as your LLC grows and expands. It's not complicated. It can be time consuming, especially if you're somebody prone to anxiety and you're I don't know what this means. Just take your time and go step by step. Now, however, if you have a partnership, that's a different story altogether. If you're going to have multiple members in your LLC, also a different story. You need to be working with a lawyer and getting custom documents, because risks, profit, assets, all of it, it's going to be a different story. And then you're going to want an operating agreement, et cetera. But I think pretty much everybody that we're talking to today is setting up their own LLC. So you should be, you can have a lawyer do it, but I think it's something that you can set up generally by yourself.
Okay, well, that's good news, because I think a lot of people want to do some of these things independently. They just maybe don't understand all of the steps involved, or that registered agent comment came up and I was I think they just received mail. Someone was talking about, well, what if you get served for someone suing you? Are they going to serve you if you're the registered agent? Are they going to serve you at your place of business, and how embarrassing that would be? And I was if you're getting served, they're going to serve you wherever. It doesn't matter who your registered agent is, most likely. But maybe would they serve your registered agent? If you were getting served they wouldn't send that in the mail. Someone has to physically serve you.
The summons. Yeah. It depends. It's case by
I think
case.
this is things that are not going to happen, but I think it's easy to think of every thing that could possibly go wrong as a way to like not do the thing, right? Like all these things could go wrong. So I'm just going to not make a decision about who my registered agent is or even like filing an LLC. So
we've all been there to some degree. I mean, I had 16 things I needed to do yesterday and I vacuumed the molding. Like it takes on a different form for everybody.
Yes.
Like I feel like fear can be like the biggest barrier to doing what you need to do. Don't let something like a registered agent stop you from forming your LLC and moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I think when people are thinking about like, oh, should I purchase like the website toolbox? Should I purchase the contracts toolbox? Like, which one do I pick? Do I only need one? Let's go over everything that's in the MFR Coaches Legal Toolbox Business Policies, Contracts, and Disclosure Bundle. Talk about that a little bit. So I'll start by saying like inside the bundle, all of the assets are digital and you have access to them for once you buy it, you always will have access to it, but everything is downloadable and digital. You get inside of it and you can download them either in a Word document or also to a Google Drive. We've got a little bit of a video training, and then Maren was gracious and she came in and did a question and answer session with clients that had purchased the legal toolbox at the beginning. So you have access to that video as well. Do you want to talk about the things that are in the kit?
Sure. So the welcome letter is kind of, I mean, there's some general language in the welcome letter, but this is how, and you can customize it for your practice, but this is how you introduce a prospect to your practice. If there's anything specific to how you want them to dress for their first session, if there's anything you want them to know about what to eat or what not to eat before their first session, that kind of thing, that's the kind of information that you put in the welcome letter. And again, this is, you can customize it however you want, but this is the introduction to your practice. And then the intake, I love the intake because I worked with Heather for all of this, but Heather gave me a ton of great input for the intake. It's robust, it's very detailed, and I forget how many pages it is, but it's very comprehensive. And I think that benefits you as the practitioner and also the client, because again, we talked about this earlier. I feel like a lot of clients, when they come to a practitioner, they've seen so many other therapists, doctors, et cetera. So this gives them the opportunity to not only just talk through their symptoms, but also talk through what they've tried and what hasn't worked for them before. And I think that there was a question that I thought was very poignant. It was, what do you think is going on? And I feel like so many people have never really been asked that, or they've tried to talk it through with a doctor and they've just been placated or condescended to. So I think that's a really important piece of information for the practitioner, but also for the client to be able to just be like, I think it's this. I've been told it's this. So I think the client intake is, like I said, it's really robust, but I think you'll get, using a form that comprehensive, you're going to get some really good nuggets of information. And then next is the contract. So that is all in one. We put a lot of the policies that practitioners are using, like say the policy around no-shows, the policy around late cancellations, that kind of thing. We embedded those into the contract. So it's one document. It's going to talk about your fees for clients that are buying packages versus single sessions. It's going to have, we talked about chargebacks earlier. It has that policy embedded in it. And then it has all of the legalese that's really important for you as far as limitation of liability. What happens in the event that there's a dispute that can't be amicably resolved? That all is laid out in that contract. And there are a few things that you'll have to tweak, like fill in the blank. But generally, that's all of these pretty much. The only things you'll really need to tweak are your prices, your availability to the client, and your city and state where you are geographically located and your business name. So it won't take long to customize that for your business. Then we have HIPAA. So everybody's already familiar with that, but this is legally compliant, thorough HIPAA disclosure. And then it also talks more generally about privacy disclosures, how you're using personal information collected in your business. Then we also have a minor consent form, which I think is really important for obviously treating minors. And it's also going to be the minor will sign it, and then the parent or guardian will sign it as well. I think it's really important here, not just from a liability protection standpoint for you, but also to level set expectations of both the minor and the minor's parent or guardian as to what the service is going to entail, what it's going to look like, and what kind of results they can expect in what particular time frame. Sometimes people have just ridiculous outsized expectations of walking in and then walking out magically 100% healed.
Yeah. That's what I want to do when I go to the gym. I just like instantly want to lose 5 pounds from just entering the premises.
Just entering the premises, breathing that gym, that lovely stagnant gym air.
Just having the membership.
Exactly. You don't even want to cross the threshold. You just, the auto charge on your credit card, that should be enough.
That should be enough.
And then the last thing we have is the prenatal consent form, also very important. We cover some of the prenatal questions in the client intake, but I thought it was important to have a separate prenatal consent form, both for protection for you and then also to put the pregnant mothers, any potential worries. It's like alleviating any potential worries before they even really get a chance to generate.
Awesome. This is so good. It's loaded with all these things and also so customizable. So if you see something in the intake that you wouldn't normally ask a client, you can just delete it. If you want to ask more questions, you can just add them in, right? It's just customizable and just you make it yours. So we've made it easy and put it all together in one toolbox for the policies, contracts, and disclosure templates. And then you can buy separately the website toolbox. And we'll just briefly go over everything that's in that so you know while you are listening to this. Okay, so you talked about a lot of this at the top of the show, but inside this one is the MFR terms and conditions, website privacy policy, and website disclaimer policy. And all of those are pretty much like ready to go, just upload onto your website. You just have to maybe update your city and state and the name of your business.
Absolutely. And I think the privacy policy, it's going to prompt you to put in your website's URL too. But I mean, like it will take you less than 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. So they're really easy to customize and then get posted on your website.
Yeah. So good. Okay. Well, I'm so excited for every MFR therapist to have access to these. You can find them on my website, themfrcoach.com/toolbox, and purchase one or both. You get a discount when you buy them together. So have at it, everybody. Go get your toolbox. Thanks again for joining us on this episode of the podcast. It's always fun to have you back. Do you want to tell people like what you're up to now? I know you're doing something a little bit different than what you were doing before.
Sure. So I am still doing trademarks, done for you trademarks. I have contract templates that I've drafted separate and apart from the toolbox. Mm-hmm. So if people have another business and they want to host an in-person retreat, or they're a copywriter or whatever, there's contract templates for that. And then I still have my Instagram where I try to somewhat consistently, don't always succeed with it, but try to somewhat consistently post legal tips. So I have that. And then I've taken a step back from most of my one-on-one work just because I have a couple non-law business ventures that I'm working on. I have a consulting gig. Like it's, who needs sleep, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, good. It sounds like you're having fun. That's what matters. So
absolutely.
Awesome. Well, everybody go follow Maren on Instagram. What's your handle again on there?
So it's Solivagan, which I'll have to spell, or you can drop it in the notes, but it's Solivagan_legal, SOLIVAGANT_legal.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you again so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I always love chatting with you and I'm excited about the toolbox.
Yeah, it's so fun. We'll get more into more people's hands and we'll keep on selling it. So, all right, everybody, we'll see you on another episode of the MFR Coaches Podcast. Bye.
Thanks for joining me today. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a minute and rate and review the podcast. I appreciate it. For more information, please follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The MFR Coach. And check out my website, www.themfrcoach.com, for more information. If you are currently not working 20 hours or less and making six figures in your MFR business, I want to help you change that. Make sure you tune into the show and get on my email list so you never miss out on important trainings and information. To be the first to find out when we are enrolling next for my 12-month Business Foundations coaching program, get on that email list at www.themfrcoach.com/join. Inside this program, you'll learn how to raise your rate, overcome objections, and sell MFR. You'll become the MFR therapist that never under-earns and never burns out. It's up to us to make MFR mainstream, and it starts with you and your successful MFR practice. See you next week.